let's just really look at it this way. He could be a top-level defensive lineman for us if he continues his path and if Dan Quinn can do his job. Now, I'm very much aware of how terrible this Cowboys defense was, specifically with this run game defense. But that doesn't mean that it can't get better. You know, we have the tools readily accessible, and one of them, in Neville Gallimore, could be the guy that could take that next step to being that dependable interior defensive lineman we desperately need. Now, before I go any further and talk about this, if you guys could do me a solid favor and down below smash the like button, it helps this video out in YouTube's algorithm and more importantly helps the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe so you can receive more content like this, you know, going over training camp, preseason, season, all that other stuff. So, with that being said, Neville Gallimore, when he came out of Oklahoma, a lot of us in Cowboy Nation were excited. You know, the talent that he had, the versatility in the sense of what he has available to him, the size, the speed, all those metrics and stuff like that. If he came into his own, he would be great. Now, what kind of was irritating was that we didn't really get a chance to see him, only in limited spurts, and then, more specifically, and I recall this, when he was starting in the Pittsburgh game, there were plays he was making where it's like, oh, like, this guy is pretty solid, and maybe he can be something. Now, another point of note would be that Dan Quinn, recently hired defensive coordinator, has had some experience with developing quality defensive tackles, and more specifically taking a 5th rounder by the name of Grady Jarrett and developing him into a quality, and I mean all-pro, Pro Bowler type of guy at that defensive tackle position. So, you know, to have that on your team is pretty damn good. Now, I will say it does depend on the talent of the player and if you can really push them to that extent. That's fair. I completely understand that. But Neville Gallimore, with what he did last year, if he can improve on that, which Mike McCarthy's been saying he's been doing that, there has been footage of him doing better and looking a lot bigger than last year. I'm really comfortable with going into this season seeing Neville Gallimore, Brent Urban, and whoever else is behind them doing their job. You know, and I'm not going to sit here and have like the casual take of, oh, he and this other person. Because to be honest with you, the defensive line is going to have so many configurations in the sense of what plays that they have to offer. So let's just really look at it this way. He could be a top-level defensive lineman for us if he continues his path and if Dan Quinn can do his job. But as I take a look at some of these notes as well, you know, the fact that he was in the top of the run defense categories and statistics is something that you shouldn't brush aside. For him to be there in the 3rd round, and, you know, like I mentioned before, a lot of us were like, oh, wow, what a great talent to have in the 3rd round. It's also something to keep in mind, not just with Neville Gallimore, but with the other guys you have. You have Quentin Bahana, as I mentioned, Brent Urban, while he's a veteran, not a young guy. You have Tristan Hill. There are these young guys that Dan Quinn can push to be a little bit better, which I do believe. And, you know, a lot of people looked at Neville Gallimore as that possible replacement for Tristan Hill, but Tristan Hill was playing pretty decent in 2020, so I wouldn't know what to tell you on how we should look at this, because, you know, we've been seeing Micah Parsons fly over the field doing all this crazy stuff. We've been seeing, you know, some of these other players playing out of position and stuff like that, you know, just to see what there is available. So I really don't know what to say until we get to the regular season, or more importantly, to the more meaningful preseason games, because it's super hard to determine who's going to be where when you have a bunch of young guys that are in their 2nd, 3rd, or 1st year. And I will say that, you know, Neville Gallimore isn't necessarily a full unlock, that doesn't mean that he's not going to do good. So, from what we're hearing, he's doing very well. And I really hope, because we need that guy in our defensive tackle position. That doesn't mean that they had to be a Pro Bowler. That doesn't mean they had to be an All-Pro. They just need to do their job enough to make the defense play better. Last year with our run defense, more importantly, the reason the defense played super bad was because this defensive line was not playing well. I understand, and I'll admit, myself included, getting on Jalen and, LVE, like all those guys across the entire defense not performing well. There also needs something to be said that, listen, and you can look at this with other defenses. The 49ers are a very recent example of this when they went to the Super Bowl in 2019. The way I look at it is that if you have a very good defensive line, odds are going to have a really damn good defense. And we kind of saw that in 2018 with the Cowboys a bit, was that their defensive line was looking pretty stout. You saw Randy Gregory doing his thing. DeMarcus Lawrence was doing his thing as well. Antoine Woods, all those guys were doing their part. But then when the run defense started playing bad, or rather that defensive line wasn't playing well, that's when you saw the linebackers get gassed. That's when you saw the cornerbacks not playing well. It's a huge red flag if your defensive line is not it. And the Cowboys have, especially under the whole Garrett administration and Rod Marinelli, they've been able to push off, this, we next year. I mean, some of us have mentioned in the draft, like, hey, let's go get a quality defensive tackle. And I vividly remember that. And I'm not opposed to that in the future. If the Cowboys want to get a plug-in-the-middle defensive tackle, cool. But the problem is, and I was even clamoring it for this offseason, the Cowboys need to go get a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, because if you're trying to build this defense, this is what you got to do. But the Cowboys, I think, have more, either they're gullible and we're just stupid and, we end up getting surprised and these guys aren't good, or they're really good and maybe we just need to shut our mouth and just let them do their thing. But either way, I think we'll be fine. I'm not saying they're going to play amazing to the point to where it's a complete non-issue, but it's something that we need to think about. I do think Neville Gallimore can be that guy. He has the intangibles to do it, but I wouldn't be shocked if you had another guy, whether it be, Quentin Bohanna, develop into something. But, those are what ifs, and it's hard because, just because it happens once in the NFL doesn't mean it's not going to happen or it will happen again. It's a whole lot of who knows. But with that being said, if you guys could do me a solid down below and make sure to leave a like if you haven't done so already. And on top of that, subscribe if you're new, if you've been enjoying this type of content, and leave down in the comment section below how you feel about this whole Neville Gallimore. Do you think he's going to be that guy? Do you think it's going to be someone else? I want to hear that down below. But I'll check you guys out in the next video. Alright guys, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.